Welcome, everybody, to the Beards and Bible podcast. My name is Josh, and I am finally joined by the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, the Gabe Rutledge.
Yeah, how long has it been?
Gabe, how you doing?
It's like 2 episodes, right? Your screen just totally froze up. I couldn't hear anything you said.
No, I gave you this like awesome introduction, and then your screen froze, my screen froze.
Man,
It was amazing, but oh well.
Yeah, so I missed 2 episodes. Is that right? Did I get that right?
You missed 2 episodes, and apparently the first 5 seconds of this episode. So
Yeah. So 2.01 episodes.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. How you doing though, man? You doing good?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm wondering if the rumors were abounding. When people were wondering if I got kicked off the Beards and Bible podcast. But
Well,
no,
I mean,
it didn't.
You don't have a beard, so maybe.
That's true.
Yeah, why did you shave your beard?
Yeah. Because I don't know how to trim it properly. I don't know how to keep it at a manageable length and I just don't know how to do that and do it well without it looking like a chia pet kind of situation. So I just kind of buzz it all off every 2 months and scare everybody.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I know not every one of us can be as bearded as myself. See, here's my thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of me that wonders if I would enjoy the beardless life because I would look a lot younger.
Mm-hmm.
But my wife and my kids would not allow me to be beardless. Like, my wife doesn't even really know who I am without a beard, and my kids have never seen me without a beard. So at this point, I've made my bed and I've got a lie.
Has Jenny, other than photos and stuff like that, has Jenny ever seen you without a beard?
Once when we were dating, there was an 80s party that we went to, and I shaved my beard into a mustache. And immediately after that party was over and I shaved the mustache, she was like, "You grow that beard back now." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." So, and that was almost 15 years ago.
She did not appreciate your face in the nude, huh?
No, naked face, Josh, is not a sight to behold. It just makes my eyebrows look super big. So, yeah. But, yeah, besides that, man, besides the death of your beard, how's life? How you been?
It's been good. I got to hang out with a good buddy of mine and his wife and his kids the other night at this place in Chattanooga called Lupi's Pizza. Is that what it is?
Lupi's Pizza. Yeah, man.
So yeah, it was good times. And you were that good friend.
Yes, I was.
Your wife and your family.
Yeah, man.
It was a good time.
It was good times.
We were approached by a random stranger who wanted to talk at length about everything. And really nice guy, but yeah.
So this
wasn't going to end well.
This guy accosted Jenny and I and the kids as we were parking in downtown Chattanooga to tell us that parking was free on the weekends, which we were very grateful for. And then he just kept talking to us as we were parking the car and getting the kids out of the van. And he's just on the road in his car. And, we were trying to be nice. We were like, okay, that's weird. And then we walk down to Loopy's, run into Gabe and Stacy and their kids. And then we all walk into the restaurant together. And lo and behold, there's our friend. And he's like, "Hey!" Like really excited, like, we're buds or something. And then for the next 15 minutes, he proceeds to accost our wives and children and all of us. And yeah, interesting dude. I don't know if he's a listener.
Accosting is not too strong of a word. You don't think accosting is too strong of a word there?
I don't think so. It was like
I'm fine with you. Okay. What's the definition of accosting?
I think it was that he forcibly had a conversation with us that we weren't ready to have. I think when we were clearly trying to catch up.
I guess, you're right. We were accosted, which means to approach and address boldly or aggressively. Yeah, wow. I'm a victim of this accostation.
You have been accosted.
So the following morning, Yeah, yeah. The following morning, but what else is new, right?
Yeah.
The following morning, we got up super early and went to a
Hmm.
psychopath convention,
Yes,
aka called a marathon, right?
we did.
Um, yeah, yeah. That was.
Yeah.
How you
So
feeling? Are you fully recovered now?
I am. I am. I think I'm physically fully recovered. It's been a lot to
Mm-hmm.
process, and that's
Hmm.
part of what I'm looking forward to in our conversation tonight. Just kind of talking through it. As soon as I got done with the race, and we came back home, my immune system just totally shut down. So I got like a really bad sinus infection, and I think a part of
Hmm.
that is just like
Hmm.
exhaustion and just my body shutting down. And I was reading online. Apparently, that's not all uncommon for people to get,
Hmm. Hmm.
bugs and they call it marathon flu. So yeah, I kind of been
Hmm.
battling that the past week, but yeah, man, it was just an
Hmm.
unbelievable experience, like all around,
Yeah.
unbelievable. You
Yeah.
had told me that it was going to be,
What?
but what
Yeah.
were you going to ask?
What were you? Oh, what were you feeling at the start line of the race? What were your
I was going to
emotions?
ask you that.
I was gonna
um,
ask you that.
yeah. So basically, when we all kind of ran into each other at the start line, I rode to the start line with my buddy Corey and my buddy Wesley that I trained with up here in Tennessee, and so they came and picked me up from the Airbnb that we were staying at, and so I got up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm eating, getting dressed, kind of. I don't know. It was surreal. You're like, gosh, this is really happening today. You feel like you're getting up, preparing for surgery or
Mhm.
something. And then
Yeah.
we get down to the start line, and it starts to feel real. And it's like, okay, we're really doing this. And then I ran into you and your buddy Joe,
Mhm.
and it's like, okay, we're really doing this. And it was like the 10 months of training and all of like the mental energy that had gone into getting ready for this moment all kind of, I don't know, it all culminated in one place. And then yeah, man, it was, I don't know, it was just super emotional for me. Like they shot the gun or whatever, and we ran through the start line. I just had this like massive grin on my face. Like I was so happy to be there. Like I could not believe I was actually there at that moment. It was awesome. Like that was the most
Hmm.
exhilarating beginning of anything I've ever done in a very, very long time. So what was that like for you?
Hmm. Uh, I was, to be honest with you, I was kind of dreading it. Like I
Hmm.
I knew that it was something I had to do, but um, for two reasons. The last marathon that I ran before this one, it beat me up. It was about 85 degrees the entire time. It was
Oh
hot.
my gosh.
Um, I just sweat out so many electrolytes and wasn't able to replace them in time. Um, and then secondly, for this one in Chattanooga, I only trained up to 13 miles, and then I was going to jump into doing a full marathon. And for those who know anything about training for marathons, that is like really really foolish. But I knew I just didn't have the time that I hoped to train, and so I knew that I had to do it. I just had to go as far as I could, as long as I could, and just hang in there. So I was kind of dreading that. I knew that it was going to like beat me up again because of that.
Yeah.
Fortunately, when we got there, it was like 51 degrees, 52 degrees. It felt
Oh,
wonderful
it
out.
did. It was
And
amazing.
I think if it wasn't for that, I would not have made it the whole time. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So
but yeah,
like,
so kind of like dread and adrenaline, I would say.
yeah. So the first few miles of the race, we all hung together. Uh, Me, you, your buddy Joe, my buddy Wesley, my buddy Corey, and we hung together for about the first 15 miles or so.
Yeah, yeah, lots of buddies hanging out, running.
Yeah. So we found a pace group. So there's a guy with a running club in Chattanooga, and I guess he had done like. Didn't you guys say he had done like the Berlin Marathon and all these like really competitive marathons? So he was a seasoned.
Prestigious kind of, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he was a seasoned runner, and so he had a big sign that he was holding up, said 4.5 hours. And so we all kind of talked, and we were like, man, let's see if we can hang with this guy. Like if we can hang with this guy and finish somewhere in the neighborhood of this, 4.5 hour thing, then that'd be awesome. And so
Mm-hmm.
we all kind of hung with this dude, and as we did, we started to like talk and crack jokes and kind of get to know people. And you remember the girl that we're probably I don't know 3 or 4, and she started saying, "Hey, this is my first marathon," and he was like, "Oh, how cool is that?"
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, "Yeah, I was in a wheelchair, and I went from a wheelchair to now running my first marathon."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
yeah. I think she said she had lupus. If I'm not sure.
oh, really? Okay, I didn't get that part of her story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. She goes, "This is a
Yeah,
testament to the fact
crazy.
that God still does miracles,"
Mm-hmm.
which was super super cool. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it just kind of felt like one big
Yeah.
party for like the first 2.5 hours. Everybody's running together, sharing each other's stories, cracking jokes. And there was this one girl named Emily in our running group,
Mm-hmm.
and every probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 miles, there was this group of people. They all had matching T-shirts, matching hats, big signs, cowbells, and it was like, "Way to go, Emily!" And we would pass them, and they would go bananas and just go crazy. And then they would get in a van, disappear, and then like a mile later, we would see them, and they'd do it again.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, man. So
and then you eventually were like, "Who is this Emily person?" Like I can't imagine my family doing that, and you were kind of like, kind of making jokes at like Emily's family, and Emily was right there in front of us, just 2 feet running in front of us, and like listening to this the whole time, and she's like, "I'm Emily." She's like the most shy little, but yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, she kind of didn't want to own that was her family because they were so over the top, but it was pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So so we hung together first 15 miles or so. When did it start getting hard for you, and what was that like?
Okay, there was a point, we were over, I guess, on the south side of the river somewhere, and there was a long hill that was about a mile long going up a boardwalk.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not a mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile. And dude, that smoked me. And then we hit the turnaround point at mile 15, and we're coming back. I think really mile 18, things started getting real for me because, like I said, I only trained 13 miles. So I was 5 miles already beyond my training point, but I was like, that's when it started getting hard, and that's when I started falling away from the group, from our pace group. And you kind of just slip farther and farther back, and you're like, all right, I can't stay up with these guys. Maybe I can keep them in sight, and I can finish with them in sight. That's something. But you just kind of slowly, your muscles kind of start tightening up, and you just run out of steam. And yeah. That's probably mile 18 is when it really got real for me. Got difficult.
Yeah, man. That's funny. That's the exact same place it did for me too. Although I think I started running out of steam before you did. And I just started slowing down. Like I didn't, it wasn't like I just quit, but it was like, I told somebody the other day, it was like I was turning up the volume on the TV, but the TV wouldn't get any louder. It's like I was pushing myself more and more and more and more. And it was like the more I pushed myself, my legs didn't move any faster. It was like, oh gosh, this is awful. And so from
18, most people. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But
no, you're good.
Mile 18 is like what most people say when your body just, unless you keep really pounding a lot of fluids and different carbohydrates and stuff, your body just cannot physically endure 18 miles. Past that, you really hit a physical wall.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and that happened for me. I hit that wall, and between mile 18 to mile like 22 was just, it was awful, man. It was like no man's land because everybody's spread out. There was no group to run with. There's not people to crack jokes and to talk, and doesn't feel like a big party. It feels like you're just in the middle of nowhere running by yourself. You're exhausted. You're tired. You're like, I don't even know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you go into some deep, dark, isolated places, and that's the thing is like you're so spread out at that point. Everybody in the race is spread out. So yeah, you're hundreds of feet away from the nearest person, and sometimes you don't even see another person, another racer, and you're just kind of like isolated in your own head. And and you go to some deep places, like the kind of dark places, like, why did I even do this? And am I going to finish it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. There was a moment while I was running where the thought crossed my mind. I think it was about mile 20 of, man, I've done 20 miles. I've had a great time. Jenny and the kids are at the start line. I've got my phone on me. I could just call her and have her come pick me up, and there'd be no shame in it. And for about like 15, maybe 30 seconds, 15 to 30 seconds, maybe, I entertained that thought. And then it was like I snapped out of it, and I was like, what? No. Like, I came this far. I have so many people that I know that are going to ask me about this race because I've told everybody I'm doing it. Like, no, I am not going to say that I quit my first marathon. I'm not going to do it. And so, like, I had to get to this point where I was just like, I don't even know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this somehow. And so it was like one foot in front of the other, just trying to keep moving. Just keep moving, keep moving. There was times I had to walk. When I get to an aid station, I'd walk some, and then I would run, and then I'd walk some, and then I'd run. And then, probably mile 22, 23, I come upon a man in a tank top who was limping along like somebody shot him in the back of his gluteus maximus.
some fool who only trained at 13 miles. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So talk about that. Cramping situation there, bud.
Yeah. So I just got to a point where I was like, I know that I'm going to finish, and it was like a combination of like, I know I'm going to finish this, and I'm going to, even if I power walk the entire thing, I'm not going to get pulled out because I have enough time stored up and banked up, from keeping a pretty good pace all those ways. But then you start to think, well, I'm not going to power walk. I'm going to slow jog. And then you start kind of running a little bit faster and faster, and you tell yourself, okay, you can just keep this pace right here, and it'd be like a 10-minute pace, 10.5-minute pace. But I would hit hills and power walk up hills and then let myself kind of run down the hill. And I got to thinking, like, I'm pretty sure Josh is back there somewhere. I'm going to do this until he catches up with me, and then we're going to finish together. And so that was my thought process, was like, my legs just, my muscles are just cramping. So it kind of gave me a second, just kind of like let my muscles kind of re-energize a little bit. They were just really seasoning up. And then, I actually got cold. So I put my shirt back on, and then I heard you back there, and I like turned around. I'm like, dude, there he is. And so I was like, all right, it's go time now. And so it was actually really encouraging to see you come around the corner. And I was like, all right, now we're going to finish this strong. And that was, it was about that time we started running together again. And this wasp came out of nowhere and stung me on the side.
Dude, holy cow. Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second. So I hit mile 22. I run into Gabe. It's like, oh my gosh, you're still alive. And so it's like, let's do this together. So we start running together. We're like, yeah, we can do this. And within like 30 seconds of like me getting re-energized, I don't know what kind of wasp this was, dude, but like this massive wasp comes and stings me right on the thigh. It hurts like crap. My leg seizes up, and I grab hold of my leg, and I'm like, ah! And you're like, ooh, insult to injury.
I'm sorry that happened.
Well, here's what's crazy. I've been stung by a lot of wasps and bees, and it's never really bothered me. Dude, I still have like this massive red spot on my leg almost 2 weeks later from where I got stung by the thing. So I don't know what that thing was, but yeah, it was awful. So anyway, that was just an added challenge on mile 22, getting stung by a giant hornet wasp right in the leg right before I'm hitting the hardest part. But so the last like 3 or 4 miles we're running together, and the way that this course is designed is you're running like along the greenway for about 90% of the race, and then you get to the last mile, and I don't know why they designed it this way, but you literally are having to go up like a handicap ramp up a hill to where the art district is. If you know Chattanooga, the Hunter Art Museum and the Walnut Street Walking Bridge. And dude, that hill, getting to the walking bridge, almost killed me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to pass out.
Yeah. Yeah. It was steep. Yeah.
That was the single most difficult moment of the race for me, trying to get up that hill on the last mile.
Really?
Oh my gosh! I mean,
Mm.
I came close to passing out. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to not collapse. Like, it's tough.
Yeah. 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 That last mile is, yeah, it's this onslaught of emotions, in that last mile. Like, you can begin to hear the announcer back at the finish line calling people in, and
Mm-hmm.
you can sometimes even get glimpses of where the finish line is. And yeah, it's your emotions begin to change and shift rapidly because you're going from this place of like deep despair and exhaustion to suddenly like, I think I've got this,
Yeah, yeah.
I think I might just make it and finish strong. And so then you kind of begin to, I think we got up on the Chestnut Street Bridge, and
Is it Walnut
the
Street
major
Bridge or
inclines
Chestnut
were
Street Bridge?
over. I'm sorry. Yeah, Walnut Street Bridge. Thank you. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's in that somewhere.
I
Yeah.
don't know my I don't know my hardwoods. The Walnut
Yes.
Street Bridge. Yeah. So you get up on there and you're running across this wood bridge, this old historic bridge, and there's people that have already finished the marathon and they're lining the edges of the bridge, cheering you on, and they're saying, that's such an exhilarating time because
Yeah.
you and I were running side by side across this like bridge, this historic bridge, and there's people just lining the sides. They're cheering and they're saying, "You got it! Just a little bit further, just a little bit further. Keep going, keep going." And then we got about halfway across the bridge, and I'm met with Noah, my son, his friend Michael, and my friend Joe from work, and they are there, and they run us across the bridge, and they're cheering us on and yelling at us and stuff, and it's just like this really, I mean, it's a very emotional moment where you're
Oh
just
yeah,
like
man.
so relieved. You're not there yet, but you're just like, I've got this. I know I've got this.
Yeah.
And I just want to break down and cry now because it's just like, this is
Yeah.
over. It feels like I've made it, and it's just a huge amount of
Yeah, man.
relief and exhaustion all combined into one. So,
Yeah, that was emotional for me too, man. Coming down towards the last half of the bridge, down that hill,
mhm.
and we went down the hill. We took a right, and then we had one more turn,
Mhm.
and there's the finish line. And I mean, it was just like, yeah. I mean, this sounds really. I know that we're both pastors, so good Lord, we're probably going to get more sermon illustrations out of this experience for the next 4 years than anything else. But
Mhm.
I mean, all I could think about, truthfully, was like, the Apostle Paul writing about, run the race, that he's finished his race well, and just thinking like,
Mhm.
man, is this what it's going to feel like when we cross from this life into glory? If we run that race well, like if we know, man, I've pushed through, I've endured, I've followed Jesus, I've run the race that was set before me. It had moments of pain, it had moments of triumph, it had moments of challenge. There were times when I didn't know if I could finish, but then like crossing that finish line, you know what I mean? Like, that's all I could think about was just like, man, this is just kind of a small little miniature version of what it must be like to pass from this life to the next and hear that, well done, good and faithful servant, And I'm getting choked up just even thinking about it, because it was just, golly,
you
man.
cross it, and you're met by people and or family members that have already crossed it as well, and it's like, they're cheering you on, and you cross it and they're just like going bonkers and celebrating for you, and it's like, it's kind of like the ship has weathered the storm and finally come into port. It's kind of like this celebration. And
yeah, man.
Yeah, no, there's a lot that goes. If anyone listening to this has yet to run a marathon, half marathons are cool, don't get me wrong, and they're probably, really good and challenging, but there's something different about a full marathon that puts your body and your mind in a different place, and
Yeah.
grow it drastically grows you as a human being to do that and to complete that. So yeah, we came in 4 hours and 50 minutes, give or take, was our time. And yeah, it wasn't my personal best, but I was like, when I came around that corner and I saw the clock and I was like, dude, I'm completing this in under 5 hours. I was like really surprised because I felt like I just really dragged on. And the fact that I didn't train as much as I should have, I was like, good Lord.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think anybody who traverses 26.2 miles in under 5 hours or even over 5 hours, that is in 26.2 miles in a single day is I think a big accomplishment. And yeah, so I am immensely proud of you for training hard and doing
thanks,
it.
man.
And I mean, you set a goal and you completed the goal, and I think that is huge and that's awesome. So
Well,
I'm proud of you.
man, it made it easier to know that you had already done it and you said, yeah, you can do this, cause
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't really, obviously I've got friends who are runners that have done it, but to have a friend I've known for a long time that knows me well, that I'm good friends with, say, yeah, I did my first one last year and I was really scared of it and intimidated by it. And then I worked at it and I trained and I survived, and you can do it too. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
all right. So it's not impossible. Like, I can do this. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really,
Absolutely.
it was funny when I crossed the finish line. There's my wife, there's my kids. My oldest is there. He's giving me a hug. My girl is there. She's giving me a hug. And my 3-year-old runs up to me, and his first words out of his mouth are, "Can I play something on your phone?" It's like, he looks at me. He's like, Dad looks really tired right now and worn down. Might as well just see if I can get his phone. So he said, "Can I play
This is
something on
my
your phone?"
opportunity. Yeah.
This is opportunity. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
What would you say
Yeah, they
the
have
highlight?
no regard.
Yeah. What would be the highlight of the race for you?
Other than finishing.
Yeah. Being done with it.
Man, just the scenery. It was beautiful. It's the most beautiful
Yeah.
race I've ever run. Yeah, I mean, running along the east coast of Florida is beautiful as the sun is rising, but this was another level, I think, just of the scenery and
Yeah, man.
running along the oh, there was a point where we ran under that steam locomotive, and it was like the steam locomotive,
yeah.
the engine was going over top of me just as I was running under the bridge, and that was a really cool experience. Just beautiful run up there. There's rapids and stuff and little creeks we were running by, and
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
that was a highlight for me. What was a highlight for you?
Man, I think probably that first 2.5 hours was really, really cool. Like, I really enjoyed just the community of runners and racers that we ran with. Just like the community aspect of it was just really awesome. And getting to run with you and Corey and Wesley, these guys that I trained with and go to the church. And I think, I don't know, just that aspect of it was awesome. Obviously finishing was the big highlight, but besides that, man, just the camaraderie and the relationships, and you leave just feeling like so connected with people, and it's almost like, man, I had that amazing experience with all these people. I feel like there's like a bond there because we experienced it together, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So
yeah. I think when you go through difficult things with people, it really bonds you together on a whole other level.
yeah, man.
Yeah. So here's the big question.
Okay.
And I'm going to respect whatever you decide. Are you ever going to do another one?
I must choose my words carefully because I know my wife is listening to this podcast. So here's the deal.
Never say never.
Thanks, Fievel. Man, this was a massive, massive, massive commitment for me. Not just the race itself, but all the training that went into it. I mean, gosh, towards the last 6 weeks of the race, I mean, I'm running, I don't know, I was running close to 40, 50 miles a week, something like that. And so my wife had to basically, on the weekends when I'm out there training, basically be like single mom on Fridays or Saturdays when I went out and did a 20-mile run. And then I come home from a 20-mile run and all I want to do is lay around the house and eat. And so she basically had to make massive sacrifices so that I could do this. And I'm super, 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 super grateful for her for that. And she was happy to do that because she knew this was a goal of mine. But I think as we got closer and closer to race day, I started kind of seeing like, man, I've put her through a lot with this, And I think it would be different if we were in a different season and the kids were older and the church wasn't as just in the busy season that I shared with you and Stacy just how busy of a year it's been for us as a church family. So it was an amazing experience, and I'm glad I did it. But it definitely there's a lot, So this is a long way of saying yes. I will probably do it again. Will I do it again anytime soon?
Right now.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. I think that's a wise decision.
Yeah. Maybe a half marathon, maybe a triathlon. I did triathlon last summer. That was fun. Wasn't as much training. I have never trained this much for anything physical in my entire life. This is crazy. This is crazy. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think I've got a couple more left in the tank. Just probably not until my kids get older. But
yeah.
What about you? You already know the answer to this question for you. Aren't you doing one like tomorrow?
Weeks. No, I got. It's the Sunday after Thanksgiving, so I've got a few more weeks. But no, I feel good. I'm pumped. I'm pumped for it. I'm gonna PR this one. I'm feeling it. It's gonna be flat.
Flat is good.
Out. I'm taking my taking my training serious this time. Yeah, I considered this marathon in Chattanooga like basically a training run for me, where I was just like, I'm just gonna trash my body and just push it hard and get break in I got some new running shoes, and I realized those shoes I ran this last marathon in, I have probably put 400 miles on those shoes, and I was like, oh Lord, they are trash. So I got some new shoes, so I'm feeling good. Yeah. I'll let you know. But I don't have any friends to run it with, so I'm gonna have to find a little group and hang out with them and take my mind off of it and talk to them. So we'll see.
Yeah, that made all the difference for this race, man. I don't know if I could have done it as a solo runner. I really don't know. I mean, seriously. But yeah. So before we move on to like other topics, what would you say are some things that you have learned from running marathons that you take with you into other parts of life?
The human mind is extremely powerful.
Yes.
To either control your body or not control your body. I think doing marathons and long distance running has greatly increased in me self-discipline, confidence, and like impulse control.
Yeah.
And I think it just made me a more positive human being, I think, just overall. So what about you?
Man, 100% exact same thing. Like, there are so many glass ceilings you have in your mind where there's this little voice that says, I can't do that, Which has been really funny since I've when people find out that I did this and I ran the marathon, people will tell me, oh, I can't do that, like immediately. And I don't say anything, but I was just thinking in the back of my head, like, the reason maybe you can't do it is because you think you can't do it. You know what I mean? Like, there's probably a lot more that people could do, but they've told themselves they can't do it, and so that's why they don't do it. I think one of the things that I learned is that, like, our excuses, 95% of the excuses we give ourselves for things that we say we can't change about ourselves, they're not actually legitimate reasons. They're just excuses. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%. And here's the thing, like, I mean, running a marathon is pretty much mostly a waste of time, but like, in terms of like disciplining yourself to eat healthier or just get out and exercise or lose that weight that you're trying to lose, we make so many excuses sometimes, or just making a habit of like reading the Bible on a daily basis or whatever. Just
man,
having that discipline is, I'm not trying to go all David Goggins here, but it's like, it's so important to set up small, and I always say consistency beats complexity. Just be consistent in a few small things, and your life will be changed. Just start tomorrow. Like, just start tomorrow doing something small but consistently, and your life will be better for it.
Absolutely, man. And it's been interesting to see since I started running for this marathon and training. Um, like I've also set up habits of doing things like, reading my Bible at the same time every morning and praying at the same time every day. Almost to say, like, as I'm
Mm.
growing in this physical discipline, I also want to maintain my spiritual discipline. I don't want to sacrifice one for the other, And as I got
Right, right.
more, um, as I got more used to continuing this physical discipline of training, it was almost like it bled over into my spiritual discipline as well. Just like, okay, I've trained myself to. I'm not going to give myself a reason. Oh, I'm too tired today, or I can sleep in. No, like
Mm.
I'm going to get up and I'm going to put my running shoes on. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to run. I don't care what my body tells me right now.
Mm.
My mind is going to win. And it's the same thing when the alarm goes off and I'm supposed to be up reading my Bible and praying. No, I'm going to do it. I don't care what my body tells myself. My soul says I need the Lord right now, and I'm going to seek Him this morning before my kids wake up and make lots of noise, and I can't focus while I read my Bible. So, um,
Mm.
just
Mm.
that, like you said, consistency. Um, yeah, it just grows you and stretches you as a person. You find out that, man, a lot of the excuses I've been giving myself for not living a disciplined life is pretty lame most of the time. So, definitely value there.
Yeah, yeah. Your muscle is as much as a brain as I'm sorry,
Your
your
muscle is a
brain.
brain. Oh, your brain. You got it. You can do it. Come on.
Your
I believe in
brain.
you.
Oh man, whatever. You know, what I was gonna say.
Your
Your
brain
brain is
is,
as much of a muscle
huh?
as your muscles are.
A brain.
Period. Now I lost. Yeah. Oh man, you get what I'm
You're,
saying. You just
I know what you're
yeah.
saying. Yeah, you're good. You're good, man. You got it.
Yeah.
You almost had it.
Maybe I need to work out my brain more.
I guess so.
Uh,
Oh, that was good, man. It was awesome. Thank you for that amazing experience.
yeah.
That was incredible. So, yeah.
Yeah. The offer stands if you want to do next year. If you want to do the 5K or the half marathon up there
Ooh.
in Chattanooga, we make it a tradition. Just let me know.
Yeah. Yeah. The half marathon next year. That sounds fun. So, I'm not sure about the full,
Mm,
but
mm,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, let's shift gears for a second. Let's talk about something a little bit more
Mm,
serious and a little bit more global, and that is um, the weekend before we got ready to meet up to do our race during the feast of
mm.
Sukkot. Something pretty awful happened in Israel. Do you want to kind of unpack maybe if somebody is living under a rock, or maybe they've seen some stuff on the news but not quite sure exactly what went down? You want to explain like what happened in Israel, what's happening now?
Yeah. I wonder. Um, I wonder if there's some numbers out there I can read that would kind of break it down for me. But yeah. So on the last day of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, which is a Jewish holiday in the land of Israel, people go out and live in like sukkahs, which is like a temporary hut, kind of manger looking thing. But it was also on a Sabbath. A week they coincided. It was the last day of Sukkot and coincided with a Sabbath. So people had their phones off. They weren't using electronics if they were observant Jews. So it was very planned, orchestrated timing wise. But uh, several hundred, if or maybe even a few thousand. I've seen different numbers of Hamas militants broke through the barricade that separated the Gaza Strip, which is in the southwest corner of Israel, and broke through in a little over 20 places, I believe, and breached the barricade. And went into Israel and went into neighboring villages that are called kibbutzes, or in Hebrew, kibbutzim, which are like little fenced-in villages. They're little communal, usually agrarian towns and villages, um, full of families and stuff. And so they went in. Some of them actually went in by like paraglider.
Mm-hmm.
And then just kind of like landed in random fields, loaded down with grenades, RPGs, AK-47s, and then went in and just started massacring anybody and everybody in these villages. I saw somewhere that it was upwards of like 30 kibbutzim that were affected by this or invaded. Um, so they went in basically. And there was about I want to say I saw around 5,000 rockets launched from the Gaza Strip into Israel.
I saw that too.
That preceded this attack, this land invasion. So sirens were going off because of the rockets coming in. So people were immediately going to bomb shelters if they had them. A lot of homes and kibbutzim have community bomb shelters, so they were going to these bomb shelters. And so meanwhile, that was over, came the land invasion from these Hamas militants, and they went in and basically just slaughtered men, women, and children, even babies, even so far as when they found a pregnant woman, would actually pull the baby out of the womb. And I've seen accounts of beheadings of babies, beheadings of women, old people, Holocaust survivors, setting people on fire, torturing people, raping, just very barbaric, taking over 200 captives back into Gaza and using them as hostages. I want to say 1,400 people died in this attack, and many, many more were wounded in some way. I've heard accounts of like families being huddled together in their bomb shelter beneath their house, and Hamas operatives coming in and throwing hand grenades in the bomb shelters, as they're huddled in there.
Oh my gosh.
Just indiscriminately just killing people as they drove through the road.
Hey, so can you explain to somebody that's listening, like, if they don't know who Hamas is, who is Hamas, and why would they attack? What would be their motivation and their reasons for attacking like this?
Yeah, Hamas is the militant. Actually, I think the Hamas is the government, and I think it's Qassam is the military wing of that government. Qassam literally means it's like a rocket or a missile. Hamas is the Islamic government that was popularly elected in this region called the Gaza Strip. It was popularly elected to become the governing force within the Gaza Strip, and I think that was back in 2007, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So Hamas has a military wing branch called the Qassam, and they're an Islamic, they're like a theocratic state basically that believes in the enforcement of Sharia law. They're basically like you can compare
ISIS,
them to
basically.
ISIS.
Yeah,
exactly like ISIS. Yeah, they're actually under the umbrella of the Muslim Brotherhood, part of the Muslim Brotherhood. And so yeah, ever since 2007, when they were popularly elected as the government in the Gaza Strip, Israel was like, okay, well, that's the case, and they're openly, publicly calling for the eradication of Jews and the state of Israel. And Iran is publicly supporting this government called Hamas. Israel was basically like, okay, well, they're just, several hundred yards from our closest towns. Therefore, we're going to take precautionary measures and put up a barricade around the entirety of the Gaza Strip. And sure enough, they started launching rockets in that were, just randomly would be launching rockets with no aiming or anything like that, just trying to hit as many civilians as possible. They've been doing that since 2007, and it just goes on and on and on. And there would be like Israeli retaliation and airstrikes or whatever that would happen. But it was discovered too that Hamas was tunneling deep underground and trying to get into mainland Israel under these barricades to come up and basically do the thing they did back on October 7th, but do it via penetrating under the ground.
Yeah.
And those tunnels thankfully were destroyed. But that's what, quick crash course on what Hamas is.
Yeah. So essentially they are a terrorist organization that, like the Taliban in Afghanistan, they essentially run the government. They were elected in the government, and their military branch is basically committed to waging a jihad against the Jewish people, because of extreme hatred for the Jews, or the hope of wiping Israel off the face of the map and giving that land back to Palestine, or kind of both, or what does that look like?
Yeah, both. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, both. Yeah, so they don't. Yeah, they believe in the eradication of Jewish people, and they believe in the yeah, they absolutely don't want there to be any kind of Jewish state that would be called Israel. They want, and that's the thing is people say, oh, there needs to be a two-state solution. There needs to be, so that's been presented to them many times
Mm-hmm.
by the Israeli government and other foreign entities, and they have flatly denied it and not accepted it. They don't want there to be Jewish people in the Levant whatsoever.
Wow.
So that's their end
So,
goal. Yeah.
so it's been so like just baffling and horrifying to me is after this has happened, you see pro-Palestinian protest in Brooklyn, in London.
Mm-hmm.
Black Lives Matter, the organization, on their Twitter, um, put up a picture that said "We stand with Palestine," and there was a picture of a Hamas terrorist in a paraglider
Mm-hmm.
with a Palestinian flag behind it, and basically saying "We stand for Palestinian freedom fighters." And so all these people on like the ultra left have adopted this narrative that says Israel had it coming, that the Gaza Strip is an apartheid state, that these were Palestinians who have been, mistreated and oppressed and backed into a corner for years and years and years and years. And so these people are fighting for their freedom, they're fighting for their liberation. And man, this idea has spread. This is the narrative in a lot of Middle Eastern countries, but this narrative has then spread to Western countries, surprisingly, and it's a horrifying narrative to see. Like, why is this narrative spread, and is there any truth to those claims?
I don't know why it's spread. I mean, Americans idolize victimhood, so that could be they have a good media campaign whenever Israel does anything and bombs a building where they're shooting from and launching rockets from. They'll actually strategically launch rockets from places like schools and hospitals so that they can get as many civilian casualties as possible. So that
You're saying Hamas
put
does
that on
that?
the BBC or CNN.
Hamas
Oh
will
yeah,
specifically.
Hamas had
Yeah.
they've admitted to doing that for the sake of
Wow.
getting civilian casualties, for the sake of getting publicity in that. So they're willing to sacrifice their own people to bring about the support and kind of the victimization of themselves. But yeah, I mean, Egypt isn't letting any of these people in, but a really fascinating thing is like, Israel has said, okay, compare the differences. Like Hamas went in and killed 1,400 civilians, and they would have killed a lot more had they had the opportunity. They got killed themselves or they ran out of ammo. But their goal is the eradication of all the Jewish people in Israel. But you look at the difference when Israel is like, okay, hey, we're about to go in and we're going to clean house and we're going to crush Hamas because we cannot have them. They have committed an act of war. We're going to wage full war against them now. What does Israel do? It's like, okay, we're going to give you 24 hours, all men, women, and children, leave the northern part of the Gaza, go to the south of the river, and we're going to give you 24 hours. And actually, they give them way more than 24 hours. And Israel is still to this day, before they bomb a building because there's rockets being launched from it, or they think there's a Hamas leader in that building, they'll do what's called roof knocking, where they'll actually hit the roof of the building with non-explosive rounds to warn everyone in that building that there's going to be some bigger ordinances coming against this building here in a minute. If basically, if you want to save your life, get out of this building. And so they do this still. Just look at the difference in the treatment of the sanctity of life. It's like Hamas is just so evil that it's willing to sacrifice its own people and kill civilian lives. And but yeah, I mean, so these people went south. They crossed the river Gaza there to find safety, and then they go to the southern border where it borders Egypt and the Sinai. And it'd be a great opportunity for Egypt to be like, okay, yeah, we'll take you in. You're huddled masses, right? But even Egypt's like, no, we don't want you because you're a threat to us. So no one's calling Egypt out on that. But yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is like I think people look at the Gazans as victims, but you've got to remember like the Gazans popularly elected this organization to be their
Right.
government.
Right.
Um,
So I mean,
and
it is a
yeah, it's
terrible
like
it's a terrible situation in Gaza. I mean,
mhm,
it's awful. I mean, you've got again
mhm,
a lot of children there. It's one of the most densely populated areas in the world. People are essentially
mhm,
trapped in this area, but at the end of the day, it is their own leadership, their own elected officials
mhm.
who's responsible for a lot of that because they're the ones that have said our neighbors to the east of us, we want to kill them and we want them
Yeah,
dead, right? So I mean, the whole thing is heartbreaking. The situation with men, women, and children in Gaza is absolutely heartbreaking. The Palestinian people there, super sad. But at the end of the day, to adopt the narrative that um, these are Palestinian freedom fighters and Israel is just a
mhm,
bully that's oppressed them for years and years and years is pretty far
mhm.
from the truth. I think that's a pretty slanted take on it that almost adopts more of the oppressor oppressed mindset instead of looking at cause and
Yeah.
effect um, for certain
Well,
political choices
the
made by
really
nations.
ironic the really ironic part about a lot of leftists are singing this tune of like, oh, free Palestine, and taking the side of Palestine and calling Israel an apartheid state. It's like, okay, you homosexual leftist
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or transgender leftist who's waving this Palestinian flag and supporting Hamas, I want to see how long you last in Gaza.
Right.
They will string you up. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
There's no gay people in Gaza. They
No.
string them up. Uh,
Right.
there's lots of gay people in Israel. I have seen many gay people in Israel. There's gay pride parades in Israel. There's freedom of press in Israel. There's freedom of religion in Israel. There's a democratically elected government in Israel. There haven't been free elections in Gaza for over a decade now because they shut that down. So it's like, and you don't have any freedom of press. There's no freedom of religion. It's like there's mind boggling how these
Yeah.
people can back an organization that is just Islamo fascist at its core.
Yeah. I think part of it is like the narrative starts getting spun and people start to try to figure out, okay, which side of the aisle are we on this, right? We've got to figure out, okay, where are
Mm-hmm.
the conservatives on this? Okay, I bet the conservatives are all going to be in support of the Jewish people because the conservatives are going to be aligned
Mm-hmm.
with Judeo-Christian values. So if the conservatives are in alignment with Judeo-Christian values and the conservatives are supporting Israel, then I can't be aligned with that. I've got to be against them. And so me being against them means I'm pro-Palestine, not even thinking about this isn't even
Mm-hmm.
about the Palestinian people. This is about a terrorist organization. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's just absurd and disgusting in the truest sense of it that someone is willing, for the sake of trying to appear loyal to a partisan viewpoint, willing to support a terrorist organization that imposes Sharia law and will cut somebody's hand off and behead somebody. Um, that does some of the things they
Mm-hmm.
do. I mean, it's just
Yeah, it's
absurd.
just stupidity.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is there has never in history ever been this thing called a Palestinian state.
Hmm.
That's a new modern invention. There have been a series of empires that have come in to this region of the world in the Middle East that have taken over, and even through the changing hands of all these different empires, there's never once been this era called or this place called the Palestinian state. Just never has been, and
It was British
to
Palestine before it
think
was
that.
this nation of Israel, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it was under British control, and there's lots of Jews living there as well. And that's the thing is like even in Israel, there's lots of Arabs living in Israel. It's not
Hmm.
like Israel is this racist apartheid state. I don't know what the breakout is percentage wise, but there a large part of Israel's population is Arab, ethnically Arab, and somehow they all get along, right? It's like,
Hmm.
how is that possible? But people don't think that. People think Jews versus Arabs, and that Arabs are in Gaza, and there's just like this racial thing. But it's just not true. It's an ideology thing. It's a religion thing, and
Hmm.
ultimately it goes back to like a biblical thing, and
Hmm.
it goes back to, did God promise these people this land or not? And which God do you worship? That's ultimately what it boils down to. That's
Hmm.
the core of this whole thing. Is God a liar or is he not a liar? Like in Amos 9, verse 13, it says, "Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him who sows the seed. The mountains shall drip sweet wine, and all the hills shall flow with it." And he says in verse 14, "I will restore the fortunes of my people Israel, and they shall rebuild the ruined cities and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and drink their wine. They shall make gardens and eat their fruit. I will plant them in their land, and they shall never again be uprooted out of the land that I have given them, says the Lord your God." So we either believe that or we don't. That's either
Yeah.
God speaking or it's not. And if you have a
Hmm.
biblical worldview, if you profess faith in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and you believe the book of Amos is divinely inspired, then you have to choose what side you're on.
Hmm. What would you say to our friends that are amillennial, or they would say ethnic Israel doesn't really have a special heritage? You know, the people of God are the people of God. There's one Israel, and that's the spiritual Israel. Anyone that
Mm-hmm.
believes in Jesus, right? I mean, of course, they would be sympathetic towards the
Mm-hmm.
people of Israel, but I mean, how would you respond to them and how they're viewing this conflict in the midst of that?
So they're saying basically that Israel has been completely spiritualized and is
Yeah,
now like,
yeah. So like,
those who follow Christ are
mhm.
Israel.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'd say you have to do quite a bit of gymnastics, biblically speaking, to hermeneutically speaking, to make that fit within the Bible.
yeah.
And that's the other thing too, is like in 1948 something miraculous happened, and that was, for the first time in thousands of years, there was again a nation state on the map called Israel. And suddenly, a couple thousand years of church dogma that has just been plain wrong and supersessionist at its core has to be reevaluated. And we have to say, wait a second, maybe we were looking at eschatology incorrectly. Because now it seems like the things in the book of Amos, for instance, and many other prophetic passages are actually coming to fruition on a more literal level than what we
Hmm.
thought they would be.
Sure.
So that's what I would say. I would
Yeah.
say that's a dangerous game to play with God's people.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm definitely not a person that would say, "Hey,
Yeah,
it's just spiritual Israel." I mean, you and I have talked about it. I mean, I believe that God
yeah,
has
yeah.
a plan for ethnic Israel. I believe that God's um, his plan for all of the end is going to take place there in the epicenter of Israel. I believe Israel is going to be the headquarters for the Messianic kingdom. Jesus rules and reigns from the throne of David in Jerusalem. Like I'm there with you on it. It's just interesting
Mm-hmm.
to me to see um, as all this unfolds. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the big question I think on a lot of people's minds, and I've gotten it as a pastor, is, and I'm sure you've probably gotten it too. Okay, is this it? Right? Is this the big one? Is this Armageddon? I mean, all right, is this is Israel going to war with their
Mm-hmm.
neighbors? Is this Gog and Magog? Is this, you know what I'm saying? Like, is this, are we about to see end time
Yeah, yeah.
prophecy being fulfilled? Is the return of Christ right around the corner? Um, so I
Mm.
mean, what do you say to that?
I don't know. We would be saying this is the big one if we lived in 1948 and we saw the foundation of
That's
the
very
nation
true.
of Israel. And I mean, that's the thing, is like, Israel declared independence in 1948. The UN voted to affirm that, and then a massive war broke out, and
Hmm.
many other Arab nations surrounding Israel immediately invaded Israel, and this little ragtag army miraculously was victorious against all these other nations. Then in 1967, 1973, the list goes on of conflicts that Israel
Yeah.
has had to endure. but we would all be saying the same thing. Like, this is maybe the big one in all those times. So I just don't know. I don't know if this is the big one. It could escalate really quickly, and and it could turn into a really big deal, or it could be nothing. But I will say, I've never seen in all those past conflicts, I've never seen the amassing of U.S. troops and warships in the Mediterranean like we have seen with this.
Yeah.
I mean, we may very well have boots on the ground already in Israel. I know that the 26th, I think it is, Marine Corps Expeditionary Force suddenly left Kuwait, and they're nowhere on the radar right now, but they're somewhere. They ended a training operation in Kuwait super early to go somewhere, left in the middle of the night, and no one really knows for sure where. But I know that we have a lot of hostages still in Gaza that are American citizens. There were American citizens killed in this attack, and yeah, so I mean that's different. That didn't really happen in the past conflicts like it did in this one. So that's an interesting dynamic too. I'm keeping an eye on too, is our involvement in it. But
yeah, it's really interesting. There's a lot of people who are students of biblical prophecy that have said that, Gog and Magog, or the different forces that are described as merging together in the Battle of Armageddon that make war against God and the people of God. It would involve Persia, which modern Iran is ancient Persia. And then it would involve an army to the north, and the northern superpower that opposes a lot of Israel's interest would be Russia. And so there have been people who have tried to say, okay, so Iran supports Hamas, and Iran and Russia are allies. So if Persia gets involved or Iran gets involved, and then Russia gets involved because Iran's involved, that's a fulfillment of prophecy right there. We need to buckle our seatbelts because Jesus is right around the corner, you know? I think that's an interesting theory, but at the end of the day, I'm not really sure it would. God could do anything He wants. You know what I mean? Like you said, if we would have lived during the Yom Kippur War and been around, there's probably pastors that were saying that and saying stuff about the Soviet Union and things like that. So it very well could be the fulfillment of biblical prophecy, but the reality is a lot of biblical prophecy that is fulfilled, you don't know it until much later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do we as Christians need to be praying and thinking about this conflict? What do you think our prayers should be? What do you think our hearts should be? What do you think our minds should be when we think about Israel and Hamas and the potential of the big one, Armageddon, World War III?
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember, war and death, especially of innocent humans, is a tragedy in God's eyes, regardless of who they are, what side they're on.
Absolutely.
And it's a product and a symptom of living in a fallen and sinful world. In addition to that, so we should be praying for peace. But in addition to that, Psalm 122, verse 6 says, "Pray for the peace of Jerusalem specifically, and may those who love you be secure." And praying for Christ's return, for His kingdom, because that will be the ultimate fulfillment of Amos chapter 9. When we beat our swords into plows, right, and use them as farming implements. I look forward to that day. And until then, it's like Israel has a very, I would say, divine right to defend themselves at this point, and protect themselves. I think that's how we should be praying, and just praying for His return, and that it be soon and in our day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm right there with you. I would say yes and amen to that. I would also add Um, keep a level head.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be easily swayed by YouTube prophecy experts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or Fox News. Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a way we should be engaged. I mean, I think we should be
Mm-hmm.
following this story and staying informed and praying about it and doing everything we can to like you said, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and praying for the Lord's
Mm-hmm.
return and praying for peace, not just for the people of Israel, but for the people of Gaza. Um, but I also say, but just keep a level headed about it, because I mean, God's not giving us a spirit of fear,
Mm-hmm.
and the point of the book of Revelation in your Bible or Daniel in your Bible or anything, even Jesus talking about his own return is not so Christians can open their Bible and then pull up their, Twitter newsfeed and Bible Twitter newsfeed, Bible Twitter newsfeed. Oh, wow, look, there it is. Like the whole point is be encouraged. The brokenness comes to an end and Jesus is victorious.
Mm-hmm.
And be faithful.
Yeah.
Be faithful. Be faithful. Be faithful, right? Keep doing what Jesus has called us to do. And one of the things Jesus said is this gospel must be preached to the ends of the earth, and then the end will come. And so, we should be getting busier now than ever before in any time in human history if we want to see the return of Christ. To share the gospel, to live out the Christian faith, to be who it is we're called to be. Because if Jesus is right around the corner, man, blessed is that servant who is found busy doing the work of the master when the master returns, not the servant who's sitting there looking at their Twitter news feed and their Bible trying to figure out who the Antichrist is.
Yeah.
Which is Oprah Winfrey, in case you're wondering.
Amen.
Yeah. Or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I could see him being the Antichrist. Everybody loves him.
Yeah. Or no. The favorite right now is Elon Musk, but
no, too many people hate him.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Maybe. The word Hamas in Arabic, it means zeal or courage. The word Hamas in the Hebrew language means violence, but not just any violence. It's connected to the idea of a bird of prey that swoops down and grabs its prey that is completely unsuspecting of its presence. And have you ever seen, especially if you have chickens or something, like a hawk comes through and just grabs a chicken, and sometimes they even rip its head off and then fly off, it's just that kind of violence. It's completely unprovoked, unexpected. And that's the idea of Hamas in Hebrew. And I was wanting to maybe close out with Isaiah chapter 60, starting at verse 14. It says, the sons, speaking to Israel, the sons of those who afflicted you shall come bending low to you, and all who despised you shall bow down at your feet. They shall call you the city of the Lord, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel. Whereas you have been forsaken and hated, with no one passing through, I will make you majestic forever, a joy from age to age. You shall drink the milk of the nations, and you shall nurse at the breasts of kings. And you shall know that I, the Lord, am your Savior, and your Redeemer, the Mighty One of Jacob. Instead of bronze, I will bring gold. Instead of iron, I will bring silver. Instead of wood, bronze. Instead of stones, iron. And I will make you overseers peace. Make your overseers peace, and your taskmasters righteousness. And Hamas, violence, it says in the original language, shall no more be heard in your land. Devastation or destruction within your borders. You shall call your walls, and the Hebrew word here is Yeshua, salvation, which is the name of Jesus. You shall call your walls salvation, and your gates praise. So I don't know. That's my prayer, I guess, is Isaiah 60, that it be fulfilled, that Hamas, that violence and injustice not be heard in the land, but not only in that land, but in our land as well. But this conflict in Israel is serving as a decision point for so many. People are having to choose which side they were on. And read your Bible, get in your Bible and see that the nation and the people of Israel are the apple of God's eyes, and he's going to keep his promise, and he does not change. So figure out where you stand on that. Make a decision.
Absolutely.
And get in your Bible. You can't get wrong.
Absolutely. Or it wouldn't be the Beards and Bible podcast. Although tonight is just Beard and Bible podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So
Beard and Bibles.
Well, Gabe, it's been fun hanging out, man.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it. Enjoyed catching up. It's been great.
Until next time.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions about any of this, or you want to go on a run with Gabe or I, send us an email, beardsandbiblepodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. We will see you guys next time.